I have ranked all Kenshi weapons in the past, but how about those that actually use those weapons? Today I am ranking all of the bosses in Kenshi. Well, not quite all of them. Today we're ranking the minor ones because I realized there's so many big important bosses in Kenshi, I cannot fit it all in just one ranking video. So we're gonna do two. And today we have leaders of bandit factions or more secondary figures in bigger factions and all that such. And we're gonna be ranking based on how strong they personally are, how good their armor and weapons, how well they are protected, how big their importance in the world, and also, last but not the least, we have the coolness factor, how cool these guys are. So let's just jump in and let's start with the nemesis of all new players, the Dust King. So the Dust King is one of those that all new players will soon get to meet because they're dealing with the Dust Bandits a lot, but the man himself, he's not very strong. His stats are like in 40s or something like that. He doesn't have anything special going on about him. He is just bad gear, bad weapon, just a dude that is terrorizing the world, and only his importance to new players and how we all meet this guy very early on when we first start playing the game, it's gonna give him a bit better rank, but the man is gonna be in B. Next we have two bosses in one. We're ranking them as one. These are Dimac and Buzan. They're the leaders of the ninjas that terrorize pretty much the same area than the Dust Bandits do, but they are stronger. They are a bit stronger, and one of these guys actually wields a Mei-2 blade, which definitely gives them a bit of an extra oomph. They are very annoying because when they raid you, they will try to steal your food. The bosses themselves live in a tower, they have a bunch of turrets up there, they have a bit of protection, but they're nothing too special, nothing too difficult to deal with, just a bit better stats maybe than the Dust King himself, but that Mei-2 blade just edges them above him in B as well. Continuing with ninjas, we have the leader of the Sand Ninjas, Sand Ninja Oni. You gotta admit, he's got the coolest hat out there. Sure, the hat doesn't give him much protection, besides the dust storm, but that's about it, right? He doesn't have very good weapon, which, you know, kind of downgrades him a bit, but he's one of those guys, you know, he's got like 6 decent stats, a bunch of ninjas protecting him. He is decently strong, he's a very good person to fight decently early on, and you know, the Sand Ninjas are like this very important part of the Great Desert itself, and I think for that it gives him definitely a bit of an edge over the two previous bandit factions. And you know, the man's pretty cool. I like him. His hat also gives him the coolness factor, and you know, 60s and stats is nothing to sneeze at, especially if you're just playing straight up vanilla, which is what we're ranking today, straight up vanilla. So for that, he goes into A. Next, we're ranking one of the cannibals, Meat Lord. Now, the man is protecting his own village. Now, we all know that the cannibals in straight up vanilla fashion are not very dangerous. They might be annoying, but themselves, they will just melt. They will die pretty easy, pretty fast. It's how it is, you know? And this man himself doesn't really have much armor. He has good strength, but not much in stats, which kind of downgrades him a bit. But his village is dangerous because this is a siege situation. He's got a lot of cannibals running around, cannibal chiefs and all that stuff. And you have to defeat them to get to him. And if any of your players get downed inside of a village, they'll be thrown into a cage, and that can start having some consequences. So he actually, in this ranking, I think he gets an A, and he is above the Sand Ninja. Even though he himself is not stronger, the village he guards or resides in is much tougher to deal with, or much more dangerous to deal with than some Sand Ninjas. Going to the second cannibal on this list, the Mighty Canhead. This guy only spawns in as an assault when they're trying to raid your village, your town, your whatever you have built. He only spawns there, and the man is not actually very strong. He's indeed weaker than the Meat Lord himself, and he's got a helmet. That's really what he's got going for him. He's got a can head on his head. It just gives him a bit of a coolness factor, I guess there's that. But otherwise, this guy is pretty much a joke, not much to deal with, so he goes into C. Next on the list, we have one of the, in my opinion, the most underwhelming bosses that could be really, really, really freaking cool. We have the Preacher. The Preacher has like this coolest Mei-2 blade. It's a Mei-2 blade, so that means a lot, right? But he himself is just a tiny little hiver with a helmet. He just melts. And all of his guards are nothing special, nothing really strong. Like, this could be like a really cool place, like this cult village that worships this man. And sure, even if he wasn't strong, at least his guards could be stronger. And some mods make them a bit stronger, but still, while I love him and he's made to, he really doesn't prove to be anything better than a C. He is better than Mighty Canhead though, in my opinion, just for the Mei-2 blade alone, but otherwise C is the highest you can rank him. Next on the list is Gorilla. So the leader of the Gorilla Bandits, you know, the big buff boy, he's got some annoying guards because they are all martial artists, and we all know martial arts are extremely overpowered in Kenshi. So you have some dangerous boys defending this little guy. He's not little, he's very buff and all that stuff. He's got a lot of strength. He's got like 90 strength. He's got a special plank that he wields, and he can do some damage with it. Now the good thing is you're usually fighting him indoors, so he's got a bit of a malice there because his stats still aren't that great, but I still think the man actually deserves some attention, and I will rank him decently high. So for me, he goes into A, and he goes above the other two that we have put into A previously. The big old gorilla, these guys can be really tough. Next on the list, we have the Warden. So he is one of the United Cities guardians or special people that he is the leader of the infamous Tengu's Walled prison, and he resides there with his Mei-2 Jit. So he's got that good weapon, he's got good samurai armor, you know, he's got strong guards posted around him. This guy can actually, or a girl, because it depends on how they spawn in, it's not set, they can be pretty damn dangerous, and it's usually not the easiest place to assault, that is the walls, the Tengu's Vault. So in my opinion, and also his importance, if you look at him, like he's a very important man in the United Cities, I think this man or woman deserves an S. Next on the list, we have another duo of bosses. We have Screamer the Falls and Punk. These guys have their own thralls running around in a very difficult terrain. You know, you have the sky beams burning you down from the sky. These guys are no joke. Especially getting to them is no joke, and potentially getting out of there is also no joke. This is a serious situation. While they themselves have only like 50s in stats, they still have, both of them, a Mei-2 blade. Now in vanilla, this is not the most tough situation to get out of and defeat these guys, but still, they're pretty strong. They are defending Agnew, they both have bounties on them. I forgot to mention that a lot of these guys previously also have bounties on them. But I think they don't deserve an S tier. They're not an S tier bosses, they're not that difficult. But A tier for me, for sure. I would still put them a bit below the Gorilla Bandit. I think they're a bit below that, but still A tier for sure. Next, we're going to the swamps. There's a lot of bosses in the swamps. We're not ranking really all of them because there's just too many and not all of them are that important. So I'm picking one of the bunch of different factions that fight each other over there that are not necessarily enemies to you right from the start. So we're ranking Big L. Big L is the leader of Stone Rats, and why I picked Stone Rats is because they're kind of the bullies of the good factions of the swamps. They'll come to your base if you build in the swamps, and they're gonna be dicks about it, and I had to fight them many times. Now Big L himself is not actually that big of an all. He's not that strong, he's got pretty crappy armor and weapons, and he doesn't really deserve more than a C. While his faction might be annoying and obnoxious, and I wish them all destroyed, he's not that strong. I would still put him above Mighty Canhead though, because Mighty Canhead is just but a C for the man. There you go. Next we have the Red Bandit, or the Red Saber Boss. He doesn't really have an actual name in the game, he's just the Red Saber Boss, but he wields a Mei-2 blade, and that makes him important. Of course he does. Of course he also has a great armor, and he is decently protected with his red sabers in a red saber hideout, but really nothing too crazy over there. He's got a bit of a bounty. You'll have no problems defeating him as long as you get to that place and not get eaten by the blood spiders. He does have good strength, but really that's all he's got going for him. But he's still, you know, not a leader from the swamps. He's still better than Big Ol and these guys. He's still better than the Dust King. So for me, he goes into B tier. Last but not the least from the swamps, we have Shade. He is the leader of the Swamp Ninjas. Another ninja faction, because there's lots of ninja factions out here in this world. He is... Well, the unfortunate downfall of the Swamp Ninjas is the crappy gear that they're all rocking. Like, they all really have bad gear. And once you have characters and just a bit of stats, a bit of armor, you will melt through them. And their weapons, mostly ninja blades, are not really going to do that much to you. And while he does have a decent grade blade, he really isn't that much of a danger, and the protection his ninjas offer him in his hideout, also not that much. I still think he goes like at least into a B tier, but for me, Shade is below the Dust King. Next, we're going to the everyone's favorite Holy Nation, and we have two leaders from there. First is the High Inquisitor Sera. He's the leader of a stack. He's pretty strong. He's basically a leader of a city, so that gives him quite an importance over here. And well, of course, he's protected by a lot of soldiers and people and all kinds of stuff that all goes into a city. There's big consequences if you defeat him, because a bunch of towns are gonna start changing hands and all that stuff. Usually people will go for Sera, especially if they're like trying to ally with Czech or something like that and destroy the Holy Nation. They'll go for him. He's gonna be one of their targets, but he's definitely way above most of these bandits and all that stuff, because you know they're bandits. He's an actual leader of a city. He's got some good gear. He's got a decent weapon. He's got, I believe he's actually, yeah, he's got a bounty with the Czech as well, maybe even the United Cities, I'm not so sure. He's strong. He goes into S tier. I would still not put him above the Vault Warden. Next we have High Inquisitor Voltina. He's the leader of Ocar's Shield. Same importance as Sera, same stats in their 80s. He's got a bit better gear and better weapon. And I think Ocar's Shield is a more dangerous city to siege and assault, because, you know, you have that corridor and then you can get shot from both sides and all that kind of stuff. He goes into S tier as well. Like, these guys are a rank above most of these bosses that we have over here. They're dangerous. They're of course doable. You can get through them. I believe in you, especially if you want to tear down Holy Nation. I would say Voltina is stronger than Sera, just a bit. Even though, like, if you look at their faces, they almost look the same. You know, they're bros or something like that. Strong man. He's an S tier. I still think the Vault Warden is winning there, but up there. Next, we have a couple of Czech renegades. They are the leaders of their own bandit Czech factions, and first we have Tor the Fearless. While she might be the Fearless, she's probably one of the weakest Czech out there, with her Band of Bones not really be strong. While they roam around a lot of places, they're really not that strong or that tough, and her hideout is really not well defended. It's pretty easy to destroy and capture her and cash her in for her meager bounty. So I think out of all these, Tor the Fearless actually goes into F tier. She's one of those that you really can deal with early on and doesn't really present much of a difficulty. For a Czech, it's kind of a disgrace. Another Czech faction, we have the leader of the Berserkers. This is Ghost. The faction is just slightly stronger than what we've seen over here from Tora. They're a bit stronger, but they're just a bunch of squatters in ruins. And if you go for Ghost, you're really not gonna have too much difficulty in defeating him. He's got like 50s in stats, just a bit stronger than Tora herself. These guys might have big weapons, but you know, they also fall down easily. He goes into C. I think he's still above Big Al and Mighty Canhead, but nothing special there. Last but not the least of the Czech bandit factions, we have Flying Bull. He definitely is the leader of the strongest faction. He's got his special axe. But he still lives in a very tiny, like, secluded hideout. Not many guards. Pretty easily dealable very early on. And he doesn't really present too much of a difficulty if you want to go for them. He is B tier. I think he's still above these, like, just bandits. Because he is, I think, above a bandit status. But he can't really make it up to A. So for me, Flying Bull, straight up B. Next, we're going away from bandits. Well, some might say that. We go to Longan, the leader of the Traders Guild. I put him in here because he himself is really not that strong, so I don't think he belongs to the major bosses list that is coming soon, and you should totally subscribe so you don't miss that in a couple of days. And I think he's got nothing going for him, but his guards are pretty strong. You know, he's in a proper city, in a citadel, defended by them. His stats are not much. If you can get through his guards, you'll be fine. You'll be able to capture him. I think he can go into B tier because he's got a lot of importance in this world, even though he's not that strong. I'm gonna put him somewhere out here in amongst these bandits, probably above the normal bandit factions right there. There are so many slave leaders, the noble leaders, or the nobles. You know, there's so many of them. I chose one to represent them, kind of all of them, and that's Lady Khanna. She's got a wakizashi, a Meitu version of it. A lot of these guys do have their own Meitu blades, but they themselves are not that very strong. It's usually like stats in like 40s or 50s or something like that. They do have very strong guards. They themselves don't have much gear, but they are very strongly protected. You know, they're very well defended in their secluded areas, you know, usually as leaders of slave camps or something like that. They are strong. They have a lot of importance in this world. I don't think they're S tier worthy, these nobles, because they're pretty easy to dismantle them one by one by one by one. For me, they go into A tier. I'll put them like in the middle of A tier over here. That goes for all nobles, but Lady Khanna over here. Next, we have Boss Simeon. This is a person that I think most people are just like, yeah, just forget about him. He's nothing special. He's nothing too much. But he's the leader of rebel farmers. He has rebelled against the whole United Cities. You know, he leads his rebellion from like the outskirts of the Great Desert, and his men are traveling the whole Great Desert, causing issues for United Cities. I think this man has actually way more importance than we think he does. Unfortunately, his stats are not very good. He does have a decent blade, but, you know, protection is not really there because his whole town or hideout or whatever it is protected by just normal rebel farmers, and, you know, they're not that strong, unfortunately. But he's pretty decent. He's got a lot of importance. I think he belongs into B tier, and I think he belongs up there in B tier because I don't think many people recognize him as the leader he could be. Also, you can of course join him, and that, you know, gives him a bit of a bonus, but B. Straight up top B. Another one in the Great Desert, Lord Mirage. This is one of those that can spawn as a lord or a lady, even though they're always called Lord. This is the weakest faction of racist out there in Kenshi. It's one of those that you can just do a drive-by to their hideout, just destroy them all with ease, extremely early on. He's got nothing going for him. He's got pretty weak stats, pretty crappy gear, pretty crappy weapon, pretty crappy guards. Everything is just stacked up against him. And Lord Mirage goes down in the F, below Tora the Fearless. He really has got nothing to show for himself. Last but not the least, we have Gutterhead. He's the leader of the Scavengers. This is a faction not that many people interact with, and there's a good reason for it, because they're nothing special. They're just a bunch of scavengers, and they will try to sometimes opportunistically attack you if they think they can get something from you, and their leader is not much better. While he might have a basket head as well, which we previously said is pretty cool, he's got really nothing else going for him. He's got crappy gear, he's got not much protection, he's like 50s instead. Really, this man doesn't have much going for him. He goes into C tier. I think he's above Mighty Canhead still, but nothing else really got going for him. Anyway, we got our list going. This is the minor bosses, as I said previously. The major bosses video is coming soon. You guys let me know what you think about this ranking and how you would rank this. And tell me if I forgot any of the like Bandit faction leaders, and I'll tell you where I would really put them. There's so many bosses out there, it's kind of hard to catch them all. Thank you for watching. Check out the major bosses video that is coming soon, and I'll see you there.